So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to just start at the bottom where it says men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented until they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. And unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. And I'll stop there. Hand it over to you.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Paul, grateful member of recovery. Hold on a second. And the doorman for the cat. Yes. Good. Yeah, this is everyone should feel a little familiar with this reading because it describes some of the effects of the disease of alcoholism, which I feel is rooted in, and this is what we're sharing. It's just one person's humble recognition that there's an underlying cause and condition that leads us to this other condition of alcoholism. And I would say it resides right where the alcoholism resides, which is the mind. But I think it's an activity of the head or the mental processes. And that activity informs us that we are a self. We were a self and we're going to be a self. And the sense of self brings on a lot of strange responsibilities for a lot of shit we have nothing to do with. And the system itself, that sounds like one of the cries of the legion of manifestations of self right there. We just had a little snippet of it. Yeah. We cut out the other 99 voices, just captured one. How does it sound? Yeah. So, and it's truly an echo chamber, isn't it? Really. The head is an echo chamber. It keeps sending its messages out, says it receives it, and then bings the message back. It's like a loop of self-importance. And yeah, of course, when you're feeling this way, you want relief. And then it leads us to its idea of relief, which is which reinforces and increases the quality of the underlying conditions. It's sort of like the parasitical movement. Someone just talked about some show on HBO about cordyceps, which is a species of mushrooms, and taking it to another degree, which is taking over people. But it takes over insects and stuff in the natural world, and basically uses the insect to as a form of transportation to get to where it wants to go, which is the most suitable condition for the mushroom, not the most suitable condition for the ant, let's say. Yeah. And I would imagine the ant has really nothing going on. It's just a car being taken over. But with us, when the parasitical movement takes us over, it has a narrative of us doing everything that it's doing to us. So we'll rationalize where we're going by the direction of the parasite and make it a story about us. And we chose it and everything. So you may have a 30-year story of how much you love Entenmann's pastries back east, but basically that's driving you to eat the Entenmann's pastries is a candida, a fungus in your body. Yet it's compelling us to eat the sugary, floury objects. And yet we have a whole story that I'm a lover of Entenmann's, yeah, which is an unbelievable camouflage for the parasite. In other words, we provide all the shade the parasite needs to have to survive and to really have a longer life in most cases than our own life. So self-centeredness is an extreme I mean, it can sort of cause people that can see to be blind to what's happening. Yes, it's an amazing activity. I mean, who was the last to know how screwed you were? You, yeah. I mean, people just that you had a casual engagement with on the street knew you were fucked in about 10 minutes, but you'd been walking around thinking you were doing great for like 20 years. I mean, that's an incredible hypnosis, yeah. I mean, really. I mean, so this is what we like to let's say concentrate on, because the way of life is an incredible way of life, especially if you suffer. It probably would be quite good for a lot of people, other than people who have been at this point of addiction or alcoholism. And it would probably be a really nice way for many action figures to live. Yeah. But most of them wouldn't be compelled to do what we need to do. And we're not even compelled to do it most of the time. We're dragging our feet. And because really, no matter how great the program of living is, if the patient has an extreme disinterest in it, it doesn't do much. Yeah. And this is the amazing thing about what we're suffering from. It's talking to us as us throughout the day. It's like having a doctor who sends you to all his cousins and aunts and uncles to get lousy treatment. So we're trusting something that's not trustworthy. Yeah. It says it right in the big book. Why are we in so much fear today? Isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? What does self-reliance look like to you? What does it look like? I mean, it's a statement and we can nod our head, but the statement isn't going to allow you to see it. It's the activity that allows you to see it. The statement self-reliance doesn't do squat unless if it triggers an intimacy with it. Yeah. So when you recognize that when you wake up and the thoughts are telling you how the day is going to be, isn't that a form of playing God? Yeah. When the head tells you how you were in 8 years ago, how you're going to be in 8 years from now, and how you are now, isn't that playing God? Yeah. So something's playing God, and there's a reliance on that something playing God. That's the reliance on self. Yeah. So the thought system delivers these ideas and brings us to these decisions based on self that bring us misfortune we feel we don't deserve. So then we get resentful and we start having a grievance that no one's treating us the way we should be treated. and then the anger gets cooked up, and then the anger is directed. Yeah. And then that anger, and then it has an effect. And then that's when we start knowing. We know we're going to get punched after we get hit with the punch. Yeah. And then by that time, it's wrote a whole story about getting hit by the punch. You never see, like in that movie, Fight Club. What we want to do is see the video of the end of the movie before the end of the movie. Yeah. Which is Ed Norton has this whole story that he's got this other character, Brad Pitt, that's going around with him, who seems to be really fucking up his life. And he has this whole story. And at the end, he sees a video and it's him punching himself. There was no Brad Pitt. It was just made up. Well, we would like to see that before the end of the movie. Yeah. We would like to be able to see that this idea of Brad Pitt that's defeating us is an aspect that's happening in us. Yeah. So our own energy is defeating us. I think it would be helpful, because if you see it's not your own energy that's defeating you, it's your own energy that's being used to defeat you by the capturing of us by the mental activity. And it's called the bondage of self. Yeah. So we're captured by the mental activity. The mental activity uses our own energy to fuck us, basically. Yeah. And then we're left with a story that doesn't do anything. You're like a professor of holes, and you're going over all your notes while you're in the depth of a hole. What's the point of that knowledge? Not doing any good. Yes. It's making it worse to be in the hole, because now you think you shouldn't be out of the hole. You should be out of the hole. Yeah. It's just insane. So this is like what we want to use as a platform. And instead of starting off at the fourth step with, I'm going to look at my character defects, my manifestations, we're going to look at self's manifestations. Yeah. And then see how it works. Yeah. So instead of calling a manifestation of self resentment, your resentment, and just calling it a resentment, I feel like you're going to travel lighter through a resentment than traveling with your resentment. Yeah. If you're traveling through a resentment, it's much different than traveling with a resentment, because the traveling with the resentment, you may never leave the resentment. You're going to go to a lot of different situations, still traveling with the same resentment. But if you see resentment as a situation that you can travel through, you can travel much lighter through it when you're not calling it yours. Yeah. And I believe it's very clearly put out in the big book that they're not your resentments. They're manifestations of self in one's life. And self is not, it's very clearly put on page 64. Being convinced self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Self is different than us. Us has not defeated us. Yeah, self has. So self is sort of like a foreign activity that talks to us as us. Yeah. So we're in the act of being identified as self. We're not doing the act of being identified as self. That's the mental activity, but we're seemingly going along with that act of being identified as self. And what happens? We sort of end up in the places everyone else ends up when they're identified as self, with a certain aspect of it called alcoholism. We end up at the three sort of parking spaces: institution, jails, or death. Yes. And then you're wondering why all these uniquely different people coming from different backgrounds end up at the same place, because we've all been driven by the same thing, and it's not us, it's self. Yeah. So now you do an inventory and you look at how self has defeated you. Yes. You share it with another person, and then you start seeing highlights of how self has defeated you. And when you do, you start bringing that to step 6 and 7. Yeah. And if it's made it through past 6 or 7, then you have 8 and 9 to clean it up. Yeah. But with the hopes that you can catch it at 6 and 7, so it doesn't lead you having to be engaged all the time in 8 and 9. And then you go to 10, 11, 12 to do what? To reinforce the new condition, which is reliance on a higher power, and to weaken the old condition, reliance on self. Yeah. I'd much rather have 4 and 5 do most of, and then 6 and 7 do most of the work after a period of time, instead of not seeing 6 and 7 and having to do 8 and 9. Yeah. I would like to outgrow doing a lot of 8 and 9. I don't want to become a master of how to deal with resentments. I want to outgrow resentments. Yeah. I don't want to become a master of how to deal with anxiety and fear. I want to outgrow anxiety and fear. Yeah. So 4, 5, 6, 7, catch a lot of shit. Anything that gets through 8 and 9. Yeah. Make the amends, 10, 11, 12. Instead of reclaiming a condition, hopefully they are supporting the one that has been through 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah. Yeah. And then what? You travel lighter through this life that you used to travel heavy through. Yeah. It doesn't say everything will get great. It may. I don't know. But if it doesn't, whatever life has in store for this event, you travel lighter through it. And then what more do you want than that? Yeah. You are now in an activity of being free from the bondage of self, not praying to be free from the bondage of self. You're in the activity of being free from the bondage of self. Yeah. And do what? And what happens? You've adopted the agenda of recovery, which is you try to keep practicing these principles in all your affairs. And when you can't, you limit the affairs. And then you try to help other people or be available to other people to achieve the sobriety that you've been given. Yes. And there you go. Day in, day out. It's going to be 35 years now in a couple of weeks in March. Day in and day out. The one constant has been I'm sober. Yeah. It's like there's the constancy of heart breathing and the heart beating. And then the longest constancy in this life as an activity has been sobriety. I've been sober longer than I've been anything else here. Really. Yeah. So this is all coming from relief from the problem. It's not the problem describing what the problem is like. It's the solution informing me what the problem is like. Yeah. You can only know the problem from the solution, really. There's no way you're going to know it from the problem. Yeah. And from the solution, we keep claiming shit that's happening through us as being the doer of that shit. Even against the evidence, when you were out there crazy, you did some insane things that you could never have cooked up. Yeah. There's no way you could have ever said, oh yeah, tonight I'm going to be on all fours at someone's rug looking for imaginary cocaine flakes. Yeah. That's how I'm going to spend my Tuesday night. Yeah. I can't wait. Can't wait who I'm going to meet on all fours. No, we were compelled. We were directed. We were imposed upon. We were driven, as they describe it in the big book. That sure doesn't sound like we're the driver. Yeah. It just doesn't. If we're driven by 100 forms of stuff, where the hell are you the driver in that? Yeah. So I believe we're going to be driven by something no matter what. Yeah, it doesn't say your only employer. It says there was the old employer and there's a new employer. So basically, it looks like in life, as an action figure, you're going to be employed, you're going to be used. Now it's really what's using you now. In AA, it's a binary situation. Either you're in the act of trusting finite self, or you're in the act of trusting the infinite. Yeah. They may not look like acts, but hopefully they are, that have turned into habits. An action without a thought. So right now you're in the habit of being sober. You're in the habit of trusting the infinite rather than finite self. That's basically the winning side. Yeah. Do you hear messages from the old employer? Yes. Yeah. Does it say turn left? Yes. Do you turn left? No. Yeah. You're now being driven by the higher power. Even though the GPS of the old employer keeps talking, you're not following its instructions. Yeah. You're now seeing the false evidence that you used to look from as false evidence. Did you do that? Or has that effect happened to you? I would say it's happened to us, yeah? Like it says in like page 80 something, you know, the problem will not exist for you with no thought or effort on your part. Yeah. That doesn't sound like you have much to do about anything, does it? It sounds like something is doing through you what you couldn't do by yourself. I would love to see people see that in the realm of, or the regime of the old employer, something was doing for you also that you would never do by yourself. Yes? Something else was doing through you also. Yeah. We see it now as the higher power and feel a lot of gratitude and honor. But why don't we see it from the older employer? We keep living in the claiming of being the doer of all that shit that we were compelled to do by the old employer. When are we going to be relieved of that guilt and shame from 1987? Is it going to be 2023? I hope so. You know, you could try to convince me for 3 weeks, 24/7, that I did that shit. That is not my experience. My experience was something took me over and used me for transportation. That's been my experience. Yeah. And now I have an experience of something is using me as transportation. And man, the Toyota has never done this well. Under the effects of the new driver, the Toyota's been doing pretty well. Under the effects of the old driver, the demands of the old driver was I was a Rolls Royce, all the while just being a Toyota. It was tough. And especially when no one else saw me as a Rolls Royce. So yeah, I'll keep harping on it every day. Come in 20 years from now, if I'm still alive, it'll be the same message. I'm sure. Because I just humbly believe if you don't see it, you're going to look from it. Yeah. And if you're looking from it, there's a lot of decisions that are being made based on self that are going to put you in some unusual situations. Yes. And then you're going to try to rationalize and try to find some reason why it's going on. And you won't have any clue because you're missing the diagnosis, which is something is talking to you as you. Did you did you organically find out it was you, or has it told you it's been you? I would say it's been telling you it's you most of your life. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm happy to be here. It's a lovely reading. I didn't get to the right page till the end. The I's and the V's always throw me off. Yeah. But it's a terrible pattern, isn't it? You go out, then you have remorse, then it goes back again, then you make some vows and I'm never going to do it again. And then your powerlessness is demonstrated and it's more defeating and on and on and on and on. Yes. And that which is in the loop can't break the loop. Yeah. Self can't get out of self. And then you actually feel hopeless. It's not a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body at that moment. You feel completely hopeless. Yeah. And hopefully something happens which would be christened as a bottom. But if not, people can live on a bottom for quite a while. Yes. Yeah. I have a nephew. I don't know where he is now. And that's usually that makes me feel I do know where he is, which he's out. Yeah. Because this is the system, how it works. I haven't heard from him in a while, and it usually means he's relying on self and it's driving him around and yeah, not treating him well, probably. So I've been hearing this just as a sample now for the last, I'd say, 10 or 12 years. He's been involved with it for longer. And he's on his third rotation where he's going to the same rehabs that he went 25 years ago. Yeah. Can you imagine that? 20 going from one, and now he knows all the rehabs and just on and on and on. He's picked up a lot of physical ailments. His heart's not good. Yeah. He can't see his role in things. He sees very clearly where he is. He doesn't see seemingly how he got there. Yeah. And I think that's very important, especially for us. Because if we don't know how we got there, we're going to keep getting there. Yeah. So, yeah. So it's nice to be here. Thanks for allowing this platform. Yeah. All right, Kathleen.
Thank you, Paul. We do have somebody with their hand up, and I just want to say, please raise your virtual hand if you got a question about Paul's talk today or page 64, the exact nature of the wrong, the steps for the AA program. Now we have two hands. First is Gary Clark.
Hi, Paul. First, I want to thank you for talking to me the other day. I called into a meeting and I was distraught, and I don't know, whatever you talked to me about, it helped. And so I just appreciate that. My question today is, I think it's kind of related. It's like there's an event in my past that I have regrets around, where I caused some harm to people I don't even know through, probably acts of omission. Well, I don't know of a way to really go back and remedy that. And yet, it's almost like this memory comes up and I beat myself up with it. Oh, you should have done different. You should have done this. You should have done that. It's like I can kind of see that that's, a self pattern, but it captures me from time to time. And I just don't know. It's, if you have any reflections on that kind of a thing where, you know, an amends or maybe can't be done, but there's something way in the past that seems to capture the present.
Yes.
You got any advice for that?
Well, one thing is a lot of amends become living amends. Yeah. You can't go back. You can't maybe see the people because you said you don't even know, but you live. You're now living in a way that doesn't lead you to do that same thing now that you did back then. Yeah.
Right.
So that's
Yes.
sort of a living amends, and I feel that's I think that's very powerful. And the applying of that, it's like a balm, a BALM. It will sort of weaken the habit of the head to use the past to capture you now. Yes,
Yes.
that's one of its favorite nets. Obviously, it casts is the past or the future to capture you now. And
Yes.
seeing that as what's happening should trigger the admittance of powerlessness and asking for that power, however you call it in your life, that which you're intimate with through this program, to reconfigure that old idea, that past. See, because the head has the same old story about it, but you could have a new story about it. That's the living amends. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could happen now.
Well, it is happening now. You're probably not doing what you thought you did back then. So basically, this is a living amends. And a lot of us, you can't go back and change the past. Yeah.
Right.
So you just don't let the past capture you now in the present. That's the living amend. Yeah. So like when we used to do, workshops in the fourth step, we would always say, in a resentment, it would be, you know, how it was then and how it is now. So you want to see how the head is using a past event like this resentment or whatever now. Yeah.
Mhm,
Isn't it
mhm.
trying to bind you to the idea of being the past doer of that now? And
Yes.
causing some effects of feeling guilty and remorseful and shit like that. Isn't that almost like a magic trick? Yes. Because you're not
Yes.
in that situation. It's not like the immediate remorse after you've done something. This is like 30 years ago or something. Yes. So it's basically
Right.
been
Right.
cooked over and over again. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So while, and it comes along with feelings, that's how it becomes so convincing. But you have to
Yes.
see it as what it is, which is uh, because the bondage of self is usually from the past and the future. Yeah.
Yes.
And where does it bind you? Not in the past nor the future, but now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a diagnosis of the disease. So you're now seeing the selfing, yeah, with this beautiful example, and bringing that information to step 6 and 7, and let's call it reconfiguration, or let's say in shamanism, it's recapitulation. Yeah. So now you go back to an old event with new eyes. You start seeing it differently. Yeah. And then instead of having it be under the capture of self, it gets fucking reoccupied by the spirit. Yeah. So to me, it's actually an incredible moment because there's a whole patch of your space that's beholden to this past little fucking thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Want to see that repatriated and used now to enrich your day and other people's day instead of being used to enslave you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there you
Yes.
go. Take 6 and 7, and this is what
Mm.
it's sort of like when you have a chance to do something that most of the story in your head is that you never did it well and you hurt people. Don't you notice that those opportunities you run into a lot in recovery, so that you can do something that you thought you only did one way in another way, which deflates the old story? This is called recapitulation or fucking reconfiguring. So you don't have an old idea based on a thing you're doing now. Yes?
Right, right.
Yeah. So this is sort of, let's say if we've been captured and taken over, the life of recovery, the process of it is like a reclaiming of that life that had been taken over by this parasite, let's say. Yes?
Yeah,
And sometimes, and a lot of the times, we're the witnessing of it. So this program's working and we're witnessing it. It's working because it's going back to the past to reclaim something that's affecting you now. Yeah. Yes.
yes,
This happened with me with so many topics, like around money, around relationships. The head had me set up as failures in certain things. And those failures were now like casting a shadow when I was involved in those things now. Yeah. So I was living under this shadow of self. Yeah. And while the light was available. And so these things got recapitulated and changed and reconfigured. And now those same things are alive and new and different. Just like in relationships, basically, I always saw it as you and me. Yes. I never saw it as us.
right,
And when I saw especially a significant relationship as you and me, it had built-in conflict. Yeah. It became almost in a weird way adversarial. But the same relationship now, because I've been in relationships, is based on us and has a totally different feeling. That wasn't available in the past when I first came in. It's available now. What happened? There was a transformation in that topic called relationship.
yeah,
And failures and successes led me to a point of not seeing from the me and you, but from the us. And that's worked finally. Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
very
This
cool.
is like an example, but there's many of them. Because there's a lot of things that we do now that we were doing back then. And a lot of the back then, the self still thinks it's under its domination or authority, and it keeps applying its old bullshit on it. Yes? And
Yes,
the guilt and shame and the remorse, and you don't want to look at it, and therefore basically it's stealing a part of your life once again.
yes,
It's stealing the moment now with a past fucking like it's like almost like a prehistoric thing frozen in ice. Yes. You need that shit to be thawed out and capture the water again. Yeah, the moving of the water, not having it. Oh, it's still called water, but when it's ice, it's not. Yes, it's got a different quality and it's not flowing in a way. Yeah,
exactly.
this is, to me, the recovery progresses. Yeah, you get better. You get better, let's say, about a lot of topics that you thought it was done for you. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I would apply that, my friend. That's what I would do. 6
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
and
That's
ask
very
to
helpful.
be reconfigured, because the past is the past. It's how it's being used now is the key.
Yes,
Yes. Yeah. And to see how it's being used and who or what's using it, and tell the truth and bring that shit over to 6 and 7 to the higher power to have it change. Yeah. Maybe it's gonna ask, maybe you're gonna need to do an inventory. Maybe you're gonna need to do whatever. I'm sure that's not gonna ask you much. But you don't even have a say about the past from the self's point of view. Yeah.
Right.
It has you fitted with a coffin already. Yes.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
thing over and over again.
Yes, yes. Because it's working for it. That's why it's the same thing over and over again. When it's brought up, it produces the same effects: remorse, a feeling of guilt. I don't want to look at it. Yeah, it's working for self. That's why it's bringing it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like fucking valuable to it. Yeah. And then you wonder why there's no value in me thinking like this. Of course there isn't, but there's more than the me. There's a couple of me's in there. And they have their own agenda.
Yeah, somebody's getting, it's
Exactly.
working for somebody.
Exactly. It's working for something, or it wouldn't keep going there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes. So this is a disease of perception, a disease of time. All the mental activities are being used, yeah, to reinforce and to keep extending the past into this present, because the past is under the sway of this idea of self. Yeah, pictured as the doer, and you did something that you should never have done.
Exactly.
Yes. It's like a gold
That's
mine.
like lock.
It's like a gold mine to it. It's dug out so much guilt and shame from that fucking hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it can affect you. It's like an echo that affects you now. Fucking 30 years, you hear a boo and you're still reacting 30 years later. I mean,
Exactly.
to me, that's the bondage of self. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bondage of self has a feeling. Yeah. And the relief from it has a feeling. That's the real, that's to me is the real language, is that intimacy, the sense of what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many times have you worked hard, or you thought you worked hard to arrive at a certain place, and you arrive there and then it tells you you don't deserve it or something? It's always pissing on the parade.
Yes. Yeah.
It's what you're gonna hope it's gonna change. It's not gonna change. You have to seeing it as not you provokes a losing of interest in it. That, for me, humbly, is the only thing that has worked, that has stabilized. Trying to make it better and rehab it and make it a service animal, it hasn't fucking worked. It has a nature. And then to me, I call it a parasitical nature. Yeah, a parasite, it isn't a win-win. Usually it's a win-lose in this case. Yeah. When it's winning, you seem to be losing. That's what's so fucking confusing. Yeah. Isn't it confusing that your head goes back to something that caused a discomfort now over and over again?
It is. It's baffling.
Why is it? Because you think that it's got the same agenda as you. It doesn't. It's vying for the same life force. Self is vying for your life force. It wants to use it to play God with. Yeah. That's a much clearer understanding than thinking, oh, I have different shades and some of them aren't going. No, there's a foreign thing, in a way, living seemingly as you, that has a contrary agenda. Completely.
Parasite. That does make more sense.
It's not happening. Yes, that event was long time ago. Why in hell, if you were seemingly in control, would you ever go back there? Yet something constantly goes back there and wants to bring it up now. Yeah, when it's dead and gone. Yes.
Yes.
What is that? Is that part of the Gary team? It sure doesn't sound like it.
It's a downer.
Yeah, yes, yes, exactly. It's a downer. But down is up for the selfing.
Mm,
It has a total different understanding. Down is up for it. You being uncomfortable is it's looking for that condition for you, because if you're uncomfortable, you're going to listen to it. Yeah. And then if you listen to it, you may actually act upon its suggestions. And there you go. It's living as you now. Yeah.
slavery.
It's a slavery
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, seriously.
What a twist.
But you can see it. That's the good news. And we have things
Yeah.
to do about it, which is step 6 and 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate this.
Well, I
It's helpful.
appreciate it too, because I think it's applicable to all of us.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it may say I want to get to the root of it, but it usually doesn't, does it? It doesn't really demonstrate it wants to fix anything in the past. It just wants to ruminate over it.
Yeah. That's what's happened. That's
Yeah,
what
it's sort of like, a certain dog, it just finds the puddle to lay in. That's what it wants to do. It wants to lay in the puddle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
tell
And I can't
about it.
retrain that dog.
It's pointless. Yeah, it wants to keep going back and taking a shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you see it as not you, there can be a loss of interest. And I'll tell you something. I will tell you something. In this very moment, it's actually quite easy to lose interest in what's not happening, because it's not happening. You're engaged right now. You're seeing shit, hearing shit, feeling shit, tasting shit that's happening now. Yeah. This isn't, the leap of faith is to keep going to the past. Being in the present moment doesn't take any leap of faith. It's the fact.
That's interesting.
The leap of faith is into yesterday and tomorrow. That's the insanity. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Which is easier to go to? Something that vaguely happened 25 years ago, or my room right now, which I'm in the room? I would say that's pretty, I mean, this is the easiest off the way, yes?
Yeah. Right here now.
Yes, exactly. I'm
Nowhere
responding
to go.
to being in a Zoom, and it's suitable because I'm in a Zoom. That's how I'm responding. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
makes
don't have
sense.
any clue or any interest what happened 5 seconds ago, and then going in the past ad infinitum. No interest whatsoever. My interest is right here. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like a giant echo. It's a giant space. Yeah.
That's
Here.
pretty simple.
It is simple. The head makes it difficult. Because the head self doesn't live in the moment. It appears in the moment that it lived in the past and the future. That's basically what it does. Yes. It's
Turnaround.
appearing in the moment based on it was living the past and it's going to be living the future. That's what gives it a sense of being it now. You have to remember self. It doesn't come up naturally. It's something that's remembered. Yes. And in a lot of cases, a lot of effort goes into remembering it, because you got to go back 25 years ago to some imagined slight that you may have done that everyone but you has forgotten completely, and then ruminate over it. How could it have been different? Do you do that with any other person in this life? You take an
No.
innocuous thing that they may have done 25 years ago and go back there and ruminate around it all day?
No, I'm not that interested.
No.
Right.
Same thing could be applied to us when
Mm.
you see it's not us. Really?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, it's so easy to be captured by the moment because it's happening. To be captured by past moments is a lot of work. And future moments, because they have to override an incredible condition, which is they're not happening. It's amazing. They're actually not happening right now. It takes a whole lot of effort to make something that's not happening override what's happening. We're used to it, in a lot of us, but it's like a Herculean task to sort of cover what's happening with the blanket of what's not happening. It's incredible. It really is. The amount of false evidence that has to appear real to override what's happening is mind-boggling. It's a lot of work. That's why we're exhausted all the time. The head is making shit out of nothing all day. That's it. That's here, there's always energy and use of energy, yeah? There's a lot of energy going towards this stuff that could be enriching your day. It could be, yeah? You could be feeling that energy as presence, and in that presence, the power of something greater than self, and a feeling some juice coming through, and all these things they describe so well in the big book of the effects of God consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. That I'll tell you, is the easiest thing in the world, because you don't have to do anything. It's happening. Yeah. I don't have to make it happen. Yeah. It's happening. Yeah. Are you awake right now? Yes. Yeah. Are you awake right now? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you be awake to the fast? Yes. How does that happen? The mental state delivers it. And now, being awake to the moment, you become awake to the past. That seems to cause an unawakeness to the moment. Seems to. It can't.
Seems to.
It can't unless there's great faith in it. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the dilemma. We have to tell the truth about the faith in self, so that there can be a migration of that faith to the higher power. If you keep trying to have faith in the higher power as self, that's just more faith in self. It is, literally.
So you can't lie about the fact that it seems to have captured me in a moment.
You don't need to. Why not? Because it never actually ever happened, nor will it ever happen. So basically, yeah, why avoid being responsible for imaginary marks? Just tell the truth about the imaginary marks, because they are imaginary. You are the overriding quality, bro. All of us are. Yeah. We are what we're looking for, that energy, that awakeness. It's been freely given. Yeah? Freely given. And I think it's freely available. It's just our attention and interest has been directed into this realm where self seems to want to play God. Yeah. And a lot of our decisions have been made from that basis, self. Yeah. Yeah. So perhaps there's a better way. Yes, there is. Trusting the infinite rather than finite self. So tell the truth about trusting finite self. Yeah. And then the trusting of the infinite will become the dominant theme. And your life's going to show the effects. Yeah. 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 It's nice to see you, Gary. That's my take on it right now.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that.
Yeah. These are old mental grooves, but it's the same principle. Take them the 6 and 7 and ask them to be reconfigured. It's sort of like the old story of gold. The gold appears as a necklace or a statue or as this, yeah? And so the head likes to use the gold of your life and freeze it into that statue of the past, or that handcuffs of the past, or the necklace of the past.
Mhm.
And what the higher power does is melts down the statue and the form of it and uses the gold and puts it into a different form. This is alchemy, yes?
Yeah.
But not real alchemy. It's just getting gold from gold, yeah? What the head
Yeah.
has done with the gold, it's turned it and made it into something that is useful for it, yeah? What the higher power will be put it into a form or a condition that's useful to us. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get to watch it. We get to see what's going on. It's cool.
Mm.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Gary. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary, for your question. And Jacob, you're up.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thank you, Gary. A lot was said there that was pertinent to what I wanted to share. You had asked us, Paul, if we can imagine being in the same institution, 20, 25 years later. And that's totally my story. I was in a lot of institutions from mid-teens to early 20s. But my first time in recovery was in 2016. And I'd found myself back in the same institution. It was dual diagnosis institution that I was in my 20s. And then again in like 2017, 2018. And I remember saying to myself, I was just blindsided by this relapse. I was like, I don't know how it happened. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see. I couldn't see clearly what it was. And now it's so obvious. Like, I hadn't thought about this before you brought it up, before you asked, can we imagine being in the same place 25 years later? Sitting there blindsided, it's obvious that it was self. My recovery, in my first time through recovery, was all about the self. It was all about building the self up and getting better. And this time around, hearing this message, it's like night and day. Yeah, so I'm 3 years in now, and if you would have told me coming out of that institution, before I came back into recovery this time, that service was the answer, I would have known how to do that. But this time around, like, just like you said, I think it was a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, that those that get into service right away are pretty much that's the recipe for sticking around and staying. And man, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that's so stark in my mind right now is sitting there and telling the psychologist, telling the therapist, I was blindsided by this. And yeah, it's so obvious now what that was.
Yes. Yeah, the thing is, a lot of times, if there's a seeing of it, you're not in that event later of, I was blindsided by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't gain that traction. So you
Right.
don't know. Yeah. So the seeing of it actually can cause not having to go to any of these places where you see that you were blindsided by it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The seeing of it before it gets that effect. Yeah, that's the great. Yeah, that's instead of, that's like finding out about the house in the blueprint phase instead of when you're,
Walk
you're
in.
on a mortgage and shit like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
More difficult seemingly to get out of it when you're in a house than seeing the blueprint. So to me, recognizing what has defeated us allows us not to be defeated by it. Maybe in
Yeah.
the beginning, at least on the grand scale of like fucking where you're gonna stay, what roof you're gonna stay under tonight and shit, But I
Yeah.
mean, the victories or the wins become more subtle but much more profound. Yeah. Yeah, as it keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob, it's been a real pleasure to meet you, and I hope we continue our relationship.
We absolutely will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a friend of mine around the same time that I was back out and had relapsed, and she was really there for me 100%. And I'm grateful that she was around during the early part of the recovery this time around, and I got to make some amends to her. But she died during she died in 2020, and yeah, the only thing I can think now is this is what when you had talked to Gary about living amends, that's what I go back to over and over. And yeah, offering it up and
Yeah.
feeling her in my heart and feeling her here now. And yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think living amends is basically in this place of time and the story of an action figure. It's a wonderful attitude to live under. Yeah. Because yeah. I was lucky a lot. I felt that I was sober 2 years when my mother passed. That was very I was really happy that she was able to see me sober before she passed away. I was very, very happy about that. And I still am, it was very, yeah. So, yeah. But a lot of things that happened with my mom and I, there's no way I could have ever done enough amends to amend that. And so the only recourse you have is a living amends, that you live with a conviction with some power behind it based on the program that you're not going to do what you did with them to anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then you'll watch the head, the head isn't responding to your recovery. It's reacting to it. Yeah. From its view, which is, I've got to feed on the past. So, yeah. So, yeah. It's nice, Jacob. I'm really happy I met you and we've had this whole thing. This platform has done so much that I couldn't have imagined, like most things in life.
Yeah.
I've been pleasantly surprised by this event. Not that I had any strong ideas, but you always have ideas
Sure.
about everything. All right.
And thank you, Paul, and so grateful for this meeting, this platform, for the message, and I'm praying for your nephew.
Oh, yes. Again. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Or we'll end up soon.
Giselle had her hand up, Paul, but she put it down, so I'm not sure if she wants to say something or not.
Hey, I'm Giselle. I'm an alcoholic in seeker, and I just want to thank you, Paul. I had a scenario, but it would take too long, perhaps another time. But everything you say, I use so well in my life today, and it is a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. And if you need to talk with anyone, I think some people will probably be still on after the event, after the meeting, like Mike.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to describe my situation where this has demonstrated for me in my life today, everything you're talking about, affirming it, but I'll do it another time.
Okay, great, great. Well, I think you just affirmed it anyway. So yeah. All right, anyone else, Mike? I can go on. I'm not doing anything really.
There aren't any other hands raised right now, Paul. Thank
Yay,
you,
so-
Jacob, and thank you, Giselle.
All right, well, first of all, we have a meeting at 4:30 Pacific time at the same Zoom that you enter under the, Mike, are you going to be there today?
Yes, Paul, I'll be there.
Oh, great. So hope the room will be opened, and I apologize for being tardy today. Time escaped me or something. I felt the need to take a shower.
It's okay, Paul. We're allowed.
Based on my my cohabitating spaces with people. No. All right. Shave a little bit and stuff. All right. Thank you. Let's say Jacob again. Thank you so much, bro. And you're having a, yeah. All right. We got John in Florida. Nice to see you, John, as always. Kathleen, great job. Happy. Yes. Kathy from Cleveland. Nice to see you, hon. Yeah, I can see that you're applying stuff. Yeah. It's nice when you apply something and there's some light in it. Light, yeah. You'll see things in a different way. And to me, for some of us, that's the key. Yeah. So Jed, as always. Oh, you've gone back to Jed. All right. John to Jed to Jed to John. All right. It's okay. I don't know I don't see that person's name here, but nice to see him. He's right next to Mickey, the matriarch. I don't know how to get the name up. Well, whatever. Greg, as always, hope you're feeling well there in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Hallie from the alley. That's it to say. Joseph, nice to see you, Joseph. Crispy, as always. Giselle from Las Vegas. Thanks for your share. You said a lot without saying much there. Sally Underwood, always a pleasure. Yeah. Jeff P from Southern Cal. Looks like a nice day down there. He's on his bike. Roman, my friend from Germany. Hey, Roman, I think we're going to be doing the retreat in Sicily this year.
That would be nice.
Yes, so just letting you know, late September. Yeah, again, yeah. So, all right. Walter, the brother from another mother. Hold on, let me. There you go. Let's see, we've got Alex. Now Alex and Jacob. Yeah. Michael Stacy. There's a man who understands the value of service. Very good. Al Vegas. Nice to see you, Al. Nina, as always, great to see you, honey. We'll have to get together live sooner or later. Yeah. We got LJ. I hope things are going well, LJ, or you're going well without however things are going. Yes. Miranda, thank you. Nice to see you, hon. Thank you very much. Gail, as always, the Pink Cloud resident. Yeah.
Walking the beach today, walking the beach today.
Oh, you are? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. We've got, let's see, Steve Cole from San Diego, Jeffrey in Seattle. Keep your eye on the road. Bill Churchman, as always. Oliver from Berlin. Nice to see Oliver. Steve Cole, San Diego. Tim. Oh, Tim. Nice to see you, Tim. Say hello.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Paul. Good to hear you, man.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. And say hello to everyone for me. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we got Jimmy R. He's making sure that we're on the straight and narrow here. We appreciate that. We got Warren. Hey, we got Bruce, Tanya. I think Tanya may be someone. I don't know if I've seen Tanya before. Welcome. If you're new, Laurie, Rich A from the UK, Grateful Dave, Mia. So I don't know where's Mia, but there she's on the phone. I think that's it. Hey, thank you. Hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow. And the same, the Saturday meeting is going to be live at our house here, not in Marin City, just to let you know now. They're having a wedding there at the church. So, okay. I'll see everyone later. Take care.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Paul.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Adios.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Michael and Kathleen.